Suzanne Luke is going to host the panel discussion today. Suzanne is the curator of the Robert Langen Art Gallery at Wilfrid Laurier University and is active in various independent curatorial projects. She is also the visual arts consultant for the Perimeter Institute. Suzanne helped to take Box to become a regional event and has been so generous with her time and her expertise, and we're very, very grateful to Suzanne and thank her for doing this talk today. Thanks, Suzanne.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this morning. I'm very honored and pleased to have such a distinguished group of panelists here today. I think each person brings important perspectives and insight into the art world and where artists can go. I mean, Box has been a great initiative, a great stepping stone and springboard for many artists. We have artists that are just emerging, we have mid-career artists, so hopefully after this very informal discussion, it'll help guide everyone into endeavors that you might be interested in doing in the future. So in alphabetical order, I'm going to quickly introduce our panelists for today. We have Greg Holman, is the Director of Events for the Toronto Outdoor Art Exhibition. The TOAE is Canada's largest and longest running annual juried outdoor art event. It takes place in Nathan Phillips Square in Toronto, and it's usually, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the first weekend of July every year.
The first weekend after Canada Day.
After Canada Day, yeah. So if you haven't been to that event, it's great. It has artists nationally showing a variety of different mediums. The TOAC also awards between $25,000 and $30,000 in cash prizes, and award recipients have an opportunity to have an exhibition at First Canadian Place in January of each year. We also have Renann Isaacs, is a curator, art consultant, and owner of Isaacs Contemporary Art in downtown Guelph. The gallery opened in 2010 and specializes in a variety of media by some of Canada's finest national and international recognized artists. As an art consultant, Renann partners with commercial and public galleries to place important works of art by emerging mid-career and established senior artists in new and existing private and corporate collections. At the end, we have Bryce Kanbara. Bryce has worn so many hats over the years, so this is a very quick synopsis of Bryce's bio. He's a visual artist, curator, and proprietor of You Meet Gallery. He is the founding member of the Hamilton Artists, Inc., and has held curatorial positions at Burlington Arts Center, Art Gallery of Hamilton, as well as a granting officer for visual arts, craft, and design at the OAC. Currently, Bryce is the curator of the Glenhyrst Art Gallery in Brantford and the gallery, and also involved in the Japanese Canadian Cultural Center in Toronto. We have to my right here, Heather Kocsis is an artist whose art practice utilizes various types of wood to create three-dimensional architectural elemental paintings. Heather has exhibited in numerous solo and group exhibitions throughout Canada and the United States, including the Toronto Outdoor Art Exhibition, the Artist Project Chicago, the Artist Project Toronto, New York Art Expo, Designing Greenwich, and the Architectural Digest show in New York. She's currently based in Cambridge, Ontario. We have Mary Catherine Newcomb is a sculptor who often works with untraditional materials. Her works reflect concepts of human perception and the nature of reality and the invisible. Mary Catherine has exhibited nationally as well as internationally and is involved with several art collectives, including the Redhead Gallery, Nethermind. Really what I'd like Mary Catherine to share with you are the advantages and disadvantages of joining artist-run centers. I know Mary Catherine is involved in Loop, which is a Toronto-based arts collective, and she can speak about that. You know, when you're living in a region outside of the area that you're a member of a gallery, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and as well, she's an active artist with Nethermind Arts Collective, so she can talk about that.
Hi. I hope I haven't ruined my mic by hitting it with my head. Okay, when I started my career, I primarily exhibited at other artist-run spaces that were part of the parallel gallery system. And I think Bryce is probably better qualified to speak about that. But these are and were collectives that were started by groups of artists, not to show their own work, but to sort of bring interesting work of younger people into the community. So that's how I really started. I also, once I graduated from York University with my master's degree, I lived here for quite a while, and you know, I showed at these independent spaces of few public galleries. I was fortunate enough to get shows in the region, but I found it very hard to get my work to a broader audience in a larger center, so consistently. So I was involved with the Redhead Gallery. I guess it would be the beginning of the 90s, just as the gallery got up and running. And that gallery was primarily a printmaker's gallery. There were a few sculptors and painters, but it was largely a printmaker's gallery. And you know, essentially we started off by meeting, it started with a very small group and kind of gathered enough members to be able to rent a space. So one of the disadvantages of not appearing at the doorstep of a commercial gallery or having regular exhibitions is that you have to have membership fees. So you know, people would pay every month, and you get a sort of critical mass where you could actually handle a certain number of exhibitions a year or every 18 months, and you could still cover the rent. And the Redhead Gallery has been going now for at least 20 years, close to 25 years, and it's established quite a good reputation. I left the gallery just because of personal reasons. My daughter was very young, and I found that traveling back and forth was just too difficult. I couldn't participate in the way that I would like to. And which leads me to one of the advantages of belonging to that kind of organization is that it's really a community. You know, you do have to work, you do have to go to meetings. We had to, once we found a space that we liked in an area that we liked, we had to renovate the space. You have to sit the gallery. So there's a lot of very sort of personal investment that is required. But in some ways, that's also really nice because you do end up sort of building this little community, which is something that I really enjoy about being a member of the Loop Gallery right now. And the Loop Gallery is a similar organization. It had been going for a number of years when I joined. And it may be of interest to you to sort of find out, how do you join a gallery like this? Well, what happens is as members retire, there's space for a new member. And depending on the reputation of the gallery, the location of the gallery, the type of work the gallery might show, they select members, and what usually happens is on the gallery's website there will be a call for proposals, and people will send in slides. Nope, I'm dating myself. send in images of their work, and it will be juried by the other members. So the work will be juried by the other members. And then, you know, it's understood that if you join the group, you take on the responsibilities of the gallery. Now, because Loop was a little more established than Redhead was when I left, I think Redhead is now equally established, but we are able to pay for a full-time administrator, okay, which is great, somebody who looks after everything, and there is no lack of really well-qualified people to do this kind of thing. A lot of people want to get into arts management. They're well-educated. They just need that first sort of opportunity. And we have had a number of people who've kind of gone up or sort of begun to go up through the system. So that, you know, that's separate from being an artist, but is a great advantage for us, and it's an advantage for our employees to give them their first sort of crack at a professional position like that. So, disadvantages would be payment. For some people, the disadvantage is working. For me, it's not, because I do like the community, and I think that, you know, if you are interested in trying to join an already established collective, one of the things that you probably want to do first is go to the openings of the gallery, sort of get a feel for it, get a feel for the type of work that is represented, get a feel for the members, okay, and see if you think that you would like to fit in and be part of that community. Because I think that's an important, and we have had members who have joined and, you know, have just turned out to have very different ideas about, you know, what a collective gallery is. Okay, so in a collective gallery, you take responsibility for pretty much everything. If you're fortunate enough to be able to hire an administrator, they take a lot of the load off, and they coordinate things, so that's great.
Mary Catherine, can you just touch on what would the artist fee range if you participate or become a member? What would that fee range be typically?
I think depending on the gallery, you're looking at between $50 and $100 a month, okay, which is not a lot, I don't think. One of the, it also reminds me of one of the other things I want to say about the gallery is that, you know, in terms of sales, I know the Loop Gallery takes 30% of the sale price that goes back into the gallery to help pay for the administrator and so on and so forth. And, you know, we have a sort of a range of members. Like, there's some members that sell a lot of work. There's some members that don't sell quite as much work, but maybe get a lot of reviews. So sort of bring attention and help to elevate the reputation of the gallery. So it's quite a mix. Like, I don't think you really have to, it's not a situation where you really have to worry about how saleable your work is, which is, for me, a huge advantage because I tend to do quite personal work. I don't worry about the scale. I really rely on teaching rather than selling work to support myself. And, you know, different people are different. I think that for sculptors, you know, it's much more difficult to sell work. So, you know.
Okay, thank
so you have a, oh, I'm
sorry.
I'm still flat. Okay, oh, sorry.
We have, we're on a strict time schedule, but we can come back and readdress things because I think there is one thing I'd like to ask you. Maybe you could quickly squeeze this in, Mary Catherine, because you're an active, you do work independently, but you're also a member of Nethermind.
Yes.
So can you just share some insight of why would someone want to, you know, become, initiate some kind of art collective like that? What do you find that you get from that that's different from working independently?
Okay, I first of all, I think the other artists in Nethermind are fantastic. They're all sculptors. They really raise the bar in terms of what's expected, and I think you find you push your work in a way that you just might not happen without that. I won't say it's not really competition, but it's just like the bar is pretty high. And we also get to install work, sculpture, in unusual spaces, okay? And context is a huge issue if you were a sculptor. So, you know, you end up doing wonderfully theatrical shows.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because sometimes as an artist, you work in isolation, so having that opportunity to work together in a group like that is inspiring.
We've always done our work independently and just put it together, but because we have similar sensibilities, the shows just seem to start to bounce off of each other.
So, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. tend to take if they decide not to go in an artist collective or artist-run center is the Art Fair Avenue. And Heather, I will speak to you in regards. Heather is exhibited in a variety of art fairs within Canada and outside of Canada, and maybe she can address that, the differences in regards to cross-border art fairs, and you know, maybe share some tips on what artists can do to find out more information about these fairs, and if they go into the States, what are some differences that you've found over the years?
Thank you, Suzanne. So I began showing my work shortly after I graduated from university, and I was showing in a variety of places, like a lot of you are as well, cafes, restaurants, and galleries, and that sort of thing. And you know, it's really important to show your work as much as possible. It gives you experience in how to deal with the public. It gives you confidence in talking about your craft. Some of you like to do that and some of you don't. So if you don't, then that's where you try to find someone else to represent you and do that for you. I personally enjoy showing my work and sharing it and talking to people about it. So when I was younger, it was something that was really, really important to me. And I got involved with Core Gallery, which was in Kitchener, and it was very community orientated, so it gave me a lot of connection to the community and to a lot of opportunities to show, again, in different avenues than, you know, your typical gallery way. And I started doing the Toronto Outdoor Show. I did the Toronto Outdoor Show about 5 times. Going outside and showing your work can be very, you know, when it's good, you know, the weather and everything works out, but when it rains, you know, it can become very, very stressful. I did the Artist Project Chicago once, and that was the first time that I crossed into the States. And the most important thing that I can tell you when you cross over is you need to have your paperwork in place. And I have a broker. They manage my paperwork when I cross over, and they manage my paperwork when I cross back into Canada. You hear a lot of horror stories about people just trying to cross over, and you know, people take their work and that sort of thing, and that hasn't happened to me, but the first few times that I tried to cross over, I didn't have the proper paperwork in order, and you know, it was very stressful. And you know, they're trained on the border to put the fear of God in you. And you know, you're not doing anything wrong, but you know, they manage to think that you are. And but anyways, so the most important thing is to have your paperwork in place. Technically, you aren't allowed to sell in the States. So when I go over, I have an invoice of all of my pieces documented. I cross over in the commercial lane, and you have to have, you know, a NAFTA form, because art is under the free trade agreement, so you don't have to pay duty on that. And so as long as you have your paperwork in place, you know, they will call you in and they will, you know, I've had people, they've looked at my website, you know, they take away my paper and then they go behind their desk, and I know that they're looking on my website, you know, and it's, like I said, they're just trying to stress you out, but they're also just wanting to make sure, they just want to know who is crossing over. I've been in the office where truckers come in who cross over regularly. They just pay their fee and leave, you know. Meanwhile, you know, they'll keep me for like 5 minutes, because I only cross over like once or twice a year. And it's all documented. They know when I cross over, so they always try to trip you up. You know, it's just funny. So I did the Artist Project Chicago once, the Artist Project Toronto I've done 3 times. So, you know, I did the Toronto Outdoor Fair, like I said, about 5 times. And the last time I just decided that I just couldn't do outdoor fairs anymore. It was just too stressful for me. So the first indoor show I did was called the Inside Art Show, which is now Art Expo Toronto. And so once I experienced being inside and, you know, your work is set up and you don't have to worry about covering it at night, you know, it's just a really easy peasy situation. So I really enjoy doing the indoor shows. I did the One of a Kind show as well. I did that 3 times. And I did New York Art Expo once, and that was not for me. So the one thing that I can advise you when you decide on doing shows is to do your research. If you are able to go there first before you apply, like Mary Catherine suggested going to, you know, openings, you know, before you apply to a collective. You want to get the vibe of the show, you want to see how well it's run, you want to see the quality of work, you also want to know how well it's publicized, because these shows can be very expensive. So when you're doing your taxes and you think about where your funds are going, your expenses for the year, you know, these shows go under your marketing expenses. So you think about how the shows that you apply to do, and hopefully it's juried. You want to make sure it's juried because you want to have really, you know, really top-end artists among you. Because it's a marketing, you want to make sure that the organizers are going to market it really extremely well. Because you have other things to worry about. You know, you don't have to press, like I've done press kits and, you know, all that stuff, but you have to worry about going to the show and setting up, and, you know, you want to be completely comfortable in your booth. You don't have, unless you have people working for you, and, you know, you are a one-man show, so you have to make sure that you are on when you're when you're at your booth. So, you know, it really helps if you choose a show that has wonderful publicity and has, you know, takes care of that already. That's one of the reasons why I did the One of a Kind show, because I knew that it got, back in the day, I think it came like 100,000 people would go through in 11 days. Like, that's major people, and you never know who you're going to see. However, I don't do it anymore because that's another thing. You want to know who your audience is, who your market is, what kind of people will go to these shows, and if they are your market. The New York Art Expo was not my market. It's more for commercial reproductions, I found, giclée prints, and, you know, corporations where they could make reproductions of original paintings. And you can, you know, some artists want to go that way and can make a lot of money that way. My work does not reproduce. Mine is one of a kind, and you know, so I found that the New York Art Expo was not successful for me. And then now I do the Architectural Digest design show, which is in New York again, and it has been the most successful show for me. And it is for me, and that's another thing. You, like I said, you do your research and you find out what works for you. And you know, way back when I thought about doing the Architectural Digest show, but obviously I wasn't ready or prepared. And all of these shows up until then, up until now, when I do the AD show, has prepared me. And I did do one show in Connecticut last year, which was the first time that it had occurred. And usually I don't do first-time shows because I want to see how successful of a show it is. I want to know the longevity of it. I want to know you know, how successful it is. And you can also get that by talking to other artists who've been there as well, right? But I did decide to do design in Greenwich because I looked at who was behind it. I looked at the organizers. I looked at how the other exhibitors. I looked how juried it was, and it was going to be a really exclusive, high-end show. It was in one of the most richest areas in Connecticut, like in the States, and so I made a business decision to go and do it. However, Hurricane Sandy happened 2 weeks before that, and the presidential election happened as well, and people were not in the mood to buy. So, you know, it was a loss, but I'm extremely glad that I did it, and the other exhibitors that were there, I nurtured relationships who I see in New York. So your attitude is also really, really important. Not only, you know, making smart business decisions, but, you know, just your whole attitude about the thing, the shows that you do. So one of the benefits of going to New York, the reason why I decided to venture into the States, is because I wanted to expand my clientele. And technically, you aren't allowed to sell in the States, so, but you go over there to show your work, to get clients. And the reason why, like one of the reasons why the AD show is so successful for me is because it is so widely publicized. The press is there, like major press there is on opening day, and the exposure that you potentially can get is amazing. I've gotten blogged about that eventually led to filmmakers from Tennessee to come to Canada to make a documentary about me. And you know, so when you want to choose a show, that's why you want to think about how much coverage it's going to get and the benefits you can get. So it's not all about just selling the work, it's about the exposure that you can get. And I think I covered everything.
Yeah, I think you did. That's great. And that's a great segue to Greg, who will now tell us a little bit more about the TOAC. Maybe you can touch on the process of submissions, the benefits for participating artists, and maybe the objectives of the TOAC.
It's currently Canada's largest and longest running juried outdoor art event. I think one of the advantages is, well, there's a couple advantages actually. The fact that our home is Nathan Phillips Square. So you have incredible real estate. Even people that aren't aware through our ad campaigns and so on that might be visiting the city and are staying at the Sheraton Center and the hotels in and around that area, they're coming out, they see the tents. So we do get the crowds. There's an estimated 100,000 people that go through over the 3 days, and it's pretty hard to hit those numbers anywhere else that you exhibit. So that's definitely an advantage. There is a combination of students, mid-career and senior artists that participate, and because it's a juried event, the quality of work is quite strong. I know that the dealers do come out and scout. In fact, I had a student last season who not only sold out, but he also got representation in London, England. So that was fantastic 3 days for him. I feel that our price points are fair. The jury fee for a student is $30, and for a full-time artist is $50. That's non-refundable. The booth fee is $450 for full-time artists and $170 for students. So again, for the exposure that you're getting, the risk if you don't get in is really not all that large because it's just the jury fee that's retained. If you're in, obviously the booth fee is retained as well. We have 14 categories that can be entered into, so there's also opportunity for several different categories, and I will run through them. We've got ceramics, digital media, drawing, fiber, glass, illustration, jewelry, mixed media, painting, photography, printmaking, sculpture, watercolor, and wood. So there's lots of opportunity if you've got the work in hand. The key I find, and I've sat through a lot of juries now, this is my 4th season with TOAE, and we do 12 juries per season, and each artist submits 10 JPEGs of their work. So I've seen a lot of work go through during that jury process. It is key that you document your work at the highest level you can. If that means hiring a photographer, I would recommend it, because often you'll see work where the jurors are looking at it going, I think there's something really good here, but it's soft, it's not sharp, it's not in focus, or there's flare on the canvas, or an image has been photographed framed with glass in front of it, and there's reflection. Or there's distractions in the background. If you're shooting a sculpture, you know, just put it on a plain sweep so that you can put up a cotton fabric, you can put up a piece of black velvet, something just to take away any peripheral distraction. All you want the jury to see is your work, because you have to imagine you're trying to influence them within 3 seconds. There's a 3-second dissolve, so you've got 30 seconds in total. It's been proven that the mind does react to things in a split second, so if there's a distraction there, it's reacting negatively before they've even realized that they're not really responding. They don't know why, and then when they've accumulated their 10 images, they're like, I'm not quite sure that one's going to be voted low. So it's key to have really quality support materials. We do a lot of outreach. So from the promo side, we have newspaper ads, radio ads, we have industry ads, say Canadian art, so we're hitting main targets. Now Magazine, did this die? Social media, that's another a big aspect of what's happening these days, is that Twitter, Facebook, and so on, blogs, our website, so we promo a lot on
Rob
LinkedIn.
Ford.
Well, City Hall.
And ironically, there is a Mayor's Purchase Award, which is an interesting segue, because our awards program is now 53 years old. This is our 53rd season. And in 1961, our founder, God bless him, Murray Koffler, had the first outdoor art event at the Four Seasons parking lot on Jarvis Street. And the winner of Best in Show that season was Ken Danby. So there's also a good legacy that artists attach to when they become part of the event. So that never hurts your resume. When I think about some of the positive aspects, I really go to exposure, because you're touching on the general public, collectors, curators, dealers, buyers. Sales commissions, TOAE doesn't take anything, 0. So when you're down there for those 3 days, you're retaining 100% of what you sell. I don't know anywhere else that happens. Everybody's taking points, and I understand it, you have to administrate, but we're a not-for-profit charitable organization, and we don't take commissions. That's a big advantage. The other thing is building your database, because people are walking into your booth, they're interacting with you one-on-one. It gives you an opportunity to talk about your process and also to retain their contact information. And that helps when you're having another exhibition, to be able to invite them and say, hey, you're in my booth in the summertime. This October I'm showing live, wherever that may be, and the date that it's happening. So there is peripheral spin-off from that as well. The award winners, and this season we gave away $29,000 in cash and prizes. It's received from donors and corporate sponsors as well. 44 artists received awards, and this January we have our Best of Toronto Outdoor Award Winners Show, and that happens at First Canadian Place. At First Canadian Place, over the 6-week run, because they put private events through there as well as having public hours, there's an additional 5,000 people that get to see your work. So the Toronto Outdoor Art Exhibition with our awards program and our main show really does get you exposure. The challenges that were brought up and that are real, because I showed there in 04 too, the rain. I hate the rain. I love it when I'm not doing that show, but that show, rain is frustrating.
The other challenge with our show is the load in and load out, because you're arriving at Bay Street and Queen Street, and you've got 350 people arriving at the same time, and you can't park. You can stop temporarily, but you can't park. So there's a bit of mayhem. So I communicate to the artists really early on in the springtime when you know that you're in, that here's the things to expect. Here's how we try to work around it. I do a lot of first-hand communication. I kind of become your new best friend, and I feed a lot through email. I'm available by phone. I try to take it as, you know, both professional and personal service, because I'm also an artist myself, and I put myself in your shoes because I have been there, and I try to lead you the best I can. In regard to success down there, it seems to be the same across the board with everybody I talk to in other situations. You have about 1/3 that do extremely well, another third that hit the middle road, and another third, who knows why they're not getting responded to. Nobody has that magic formula. But I have seen several people sell out each season, so and you can't figure that out. I wish I could, because then I'd be back doing it. You know, in general, that kind of covers it. I'll be open for questions at the end, but I'd like to pass on to my colleagues now, and if there's anything you want to ask, please do.
So for many of you, you may continue in the vein of participating in artist fairs or juried shows, but there comes a point in your career where, you know, gallery representation is something that will be important to you. So I'm very happy to be here today to talk about, you know, the typical relationship between an artist and a dealer. You know, what she and her gallery, each gallery is different, each commercial gallery, but in her case, what her gallery looks for, you know, what the proper way of an artist to approach a gallery would be, and, you know, talk about maybe contracts and things like that.
Famous art dealer. He's still alive. His name was Isaacs. He had the first contemporary art gallery in Canada outside of Quebec. Yeah, which is great. And had some wonderful, wonderful artists, Michael Snow, Graham Coftree, Jack Chambers, Greg Curnow, Joyce Wieland. I mean, the list is William Krellick. It's huge. He then went on and opened another gallery for Inuit art, which was the first gallery in the world to exclusively show Inuit art, having actual exhibitions of each artist. And I worked with him for 12 years. What I did see, I don't have an art background other than that. I didn't go to school for it, but what I did see, and I think we sort of touched on it here, was that artists, it was almost as if they sent in, and at the time, we were looking at slides at the Isaacs Gallery. I mean, he had piles of slides that weren't remotely similar or close to the work that was shown at the Isaacs Gallery. People were just sending out, they just figured it's a gallery, we'll send out whatever, you know, they didn't, you kind of have to be your own critique, know the gallery that you're sending your work to, go to the openings, and check out their roster of artists that they represent. I'm doing something very different from my father. I work more on a basis of, he worked with gut. It was very emotional for him, the artwork that he was showing. Same with me. I'm of course interested in selling. I know I don't really like the word commercial because it sounds like a commercial musician who is a sellout. I don't believe that what I'm doing is just selling out. I think I choose work very carefully. I've seen a lot of work over the years I've been alive. And I show, like for instance, the show that I'm doing, opening on November 30th, is called Art Gives Good Gifts. I'm gonna have 100 artists. The works are 12 by 12 or under, and under $1,000. I'm now inviting aspiring, I call them aspiring artists. They may not have a background necessarily, they may not have gone to school, or they're just starting, or they've had a family, and they did art when they were younger, but are just starting up again. So I put them into aspiring. Emerging for me is somebody that's come out of school or has been doing some work for some time, but hasn't reached that mid-career level. So I'll have aspiring, emerging, mid-career, established, senior, and some dead artists are all going to be combined in a sort of salon style, and all under a certain price. So this is sort of our holiday show, and that's a great opportunity for people that haven't shown at my gallery or have maybe been turned away at some point. When I turn somebody away, it's not because I don't necessarily like what they're doing, it's because it's not what I'm looking for at the time. But I remember people. I remember the art, at least that they do. I may not remember their names, but I do remember the art, and I'm constantly looking. I work with other galleries across Canada. I work with artists that are already represented by other galleries across Canada. Most of them are established galleries. I like to bring them in to show artists, art enthusiasts, collectors in Guelph. I'm in Guelph with this tiny gallery. I'm bringing in some big names, but I show unknown names beside them. I think it's a great combination. And it really makes people aware of the difference. There is a difference between being an established artist and an emerging artist. But if you hang a show really well, which I pride myself on doing, you can have a John Kissick right beside his student, Rachel Albano, and the only thing that may shift some person who comes into the gallery and doesn't know a lot about art is the price tag. Look, I had a wonderful woman come in and say, I think you've made an error on the price tag here. It says $4,800. I think it's supposed to be $480. And I said, well, no, and so for me, I'm in a little bit of a fishbowl. The artists that I take on, it's because I really, for me, it's emotional. What they do, it's like music, you know. It's a piece of music for me. If I listen to it, and I listen to it for a while, it may hit me right away, or it may hit me a little bit afterwards. So I think, as far as contracts go, is what a dealer is. A dealer is somebody that a collector may go to because they actually really like the dealer. They like that taste that the dealer has. If I am interested in one artist, there may be another gallery interested in that same artist. But it doesn't mean that we're going to choose the same pieces. In fact, we may choose completely different pieces by that artist. And it's just, people go into galleries, I'm hoping, they're quite intimidating, a lot of them. I'm still intimidated by some galleries, but they go in as a part of educating themselves. And I think artists have to do that on a regular basis. I've met several artists who, we were talking about the isolating factor of being in your own studio, which is terrific. But if you don't get out to see other artists work, it's like being a musician. If you don't get out to see other musicians or listen to other types of music, you won't have the same inspiration in my mind. So I always tell aspiring or emerging artists, you have to go out and see shows. If it means getting on a bus and going to Hamilton or Burlington, or going to the bigger shows at public galleries, going to artist-run collectives, very important to see what's going on. What else can I talk about? Typical relationship between dealer and artist. Some of the best artists I know are extremely organized. So we were talking about photographs. Get them professionally done, not just by a professional photographer, by somebody who knows how to shoot art. And that's extremely important. Put a title on your JPEG, because some people get a number of JPEGs and then they put them into their file folders, and there are no titles. So you not even just have to have your title, you have to have your name, title, date, medium, dimensions, and the price that you think you would like to get. That's something that a dealer will negotiate with you. I say, and my father always said, start lower, because you want to get your work, you want to sell your work as much as possible and get it into collections. I had an emerging artist from the University of Guelph. He just graduated from the undergrad program, and I sold 21 of his pieces. They started low, They started low, but we talked to one of his professors, and then I talked to somebody at Wyndham Art Supplies, and we sort of all came, and then another artist, we all came to some decision as to what the price should be, and they sold. And then I had more of his work, and they sold. And then we decided to raise it a little bit. Perhaps we may have raised it a bit too much, but at this moment, he's transitioning to another phase in his art career, so we'll see how it goes. I always say go lower, it's better in the beginning, and it's a drag when you're getting 50% taken by a gallery, but understand the gallery has rent. They've got the Visa machine, the wonderful Visa machines, MasterCard, which takes a percentage, phone, internet. That little machine in it itself is $50 a day. Advertising, doing posters, postcards. You're constantly, traveling back and forth. I've taken art to Ottawa just to test it out with clients. Sometimes I go to clients' places with one piece, and they say, "Oh, let's see how this looks," and I will have a glass of wine, and sometimes I will rehang their entire place for that piece to look dynamite. And that's what a really good gallery is able to do, is to figure out the types of work that they like and then hang it so well. So I invite you to come to see this show, because it's going to be a great challenge to have 100 pieces. But each of those pieces, I want each of them to pop and shine. So what else can we talk about here?
No, maybe I'll just give Bryce, squeeze Bryce in.
Bryce,
I know
okay.
we're already going a little bit over, so maybe Bryce can now transition. We've talked about the art fairs, we talked about dealers, but now as an artist, maybe you'd like to do something that's more of a self-directed approach in promoting yourself and guiding your career, and independently orchestrate that yourself.
I've been listening to everybody, and this has been very informative for me. I've been taking notes all along here, and everyone has offered information that's really valuable to me too. I think what we're talking about is finding a place, for the right place and a meaningful place for each of our art and ourselves as artists. And just referring back to what Mary Catherine was saying about the Artist Run Center, I was a founding member of the Hamilton Artists Inc. in 1975. And they're very important organizations in any city, I think. I like to think of them as the artists' organization. Like, it's the artists, they're run by artists. There's a national network of artist-run centers. They not only show our work, but they represent our concerns, hopefully, ideally, and they're all about artists' culture, the way we live our lives, the way we go to openings, the way we talk to one another. And I think that's a really important thing to support, whether you have one in your city or not. Hamilton's close enough, you could probably become members there. And in Hamilton, they've been around all that time. The last 7 or 8 years, they purchased and renovated their own building. So now they're very established on James Street North, where the art crawl is. I really encourage you to be involved in any kind of artist organization, but the Artist Run Centers have been around for a long time. Let's see, where should I go with this now? Heather talked about taking works across the border, and that's, I was taking notes about a lot of things, so they were of interest to me, and I hope that they're of interest to you. And I think that's a really important, not really important, but it is to some people who do take their works across the border. And in recent, just in the recent months, I've talked to people from the Ontario Society of Artists, and I've done some jurying with the Buffalo Association of Artists, I think they're called. And neither of them knew anything about taking works across the border, and I kind of recommended to them that they should probably research it and provide that information to their members. And somebody like Heather, they should probably pay you to come in and give them some advice, you know, because everybody sort of chances it, like as she was saying. And it all depends on who the customs officer is that you get, and they can pull you over or they can let you through. And most often they don't know the regulations at all, it seems to me. So, they have to phone their superiors once they've got you there, and it's a real waste of time. So, I think there's a lot of information that we can all share with one another. I guess I should talk about James Street North and the art crawl. I bought my building in 2002, and it was the first gallery on the street on James Street North. So it's a small storefront, and since that time, the Hamilton Artists Inc., the Print Studio, the Factory Media Center, which is a new media kind of center. They're all nonprofit organizations, and they moved in. So that really establishes that 4 or 5 block art zone in Hamilton. And a number of commercial galleries have opened up, but the main thing, the main feature of that district is that it used to be the Italian neighborhood, business neighborhood. Now it's mostly Portuguese. It had a reputation for being the roughest area in town, and so people who live on Hamilton Mountain hadn't been down there for generations because they were afraid to go down to James Street North. And it also retains some of that. There are social service agencies on James Street North as well. But when we started the art crawl, which is, I don't know, it must have been 6 or 7 years ago, it was just a means of coordinating all the openings on one night. And a lot of different cities have done that. But we found that people really were attracted to it. And there was an article, like a full-page article in the Globe and Mail titled, it was called Go West Young Artist, and I guess it was directed at Toronto artists, telling them that there's this land of gold just further around the bay there. And that's how it started. And when they started, when they put that article in the paper, there were only about 4 or 5, not even that, galleries. So it was all kind of manufactured in a way by the media. And our civic leaders who started to realize that this was a way of invigorating the downtown core, so they got on it as well. It's been very complex, the way James Street North and the arts have developed in Hamilton, because once something like that starts, an exciting district or action starts to happen, then the city wants to get involved, the Chamber of Commerce wants to get involved, and they bring with them, they don't just give us money or whatever to support us or any kind of initiatives. They want to impose their own ideas, and so then it becomes kind of a political involvement for artists as well. It gets very complicated.
Bryce, I think
Is that
I might
enough?
have to cut you off here so we have time for some quick Q&A. I'd like to thank everyone. I think overall, from all the panelists, we've sort of got the concept of research is really important, whether you're researching an artist fair or gallery or, artist neighborhood in regards to arts crawl and being organized. So, you had a question?
I have a long career in the arts in Canada and the United States. I just wanted to comment on, particularly to Heather, she might be interested in speaking with, there's a person at Ontario Craft who's been tasked with the job of finding how to help artists go back and forth across the border, and I think it's really helpful to have an organization at your back. And just as a little aside, when I first moved back to Canada, I am a Canadian, I was represented by over 100 artists in the United States with my jewelry, and coming back here, I saw that dwindle within 2 years to almost nothing, hence I started a new career. But I just wanted to reinforce what everybody is saying is coming together and being strong as a group. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. I saw another hand at the back, right back.
I have a question about image preparation for jury applications. You said that we should put name and title in the file name, but should you also have it appear in the image, in sort of like the margin around the artwork?
I would say no, but Greg, what is your process?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's best just to have it in your support materials, but not on the piece itself.
And too, with digital images, when you're numbering them, always start 01, don't start 1 because it throws off the skew. So it should always be 01, 02, and then when it goes into double digits, I find that sometimes people don't do that, and for some reason, the order gets completely confusing.
Our jury process is a blind jury process, so we don't identify the artist, so that there can't be any conception of someone was favored over somebody else. So that's another reason not to put your name on the image.
Thank you, panelists. That's the kind of information that's really hard for artists to come by. So we really appreciate your time today on this lovely Sunday. And if you are able to linger for a little while, that would be wonderful.